The message arrived without warning. No threat. No demands. Just 5 chilling words: Earth is no longer available. Within hours, wormholes collapsed, alliances shattered, and the galaxy realized something terrifying. Humanity didn't leave because it was afraid. It left because it was bored. And when Earth walks away, something monstrous always follows. The air in the Galactic Council chamber was thick with static tension and the low buzz of untranslated languages. Delegates bickered over territory rights on moons barely charted, and no one noticed the woman until the doors slammed shut behind her. She didn't walk. She advanced. Boots clicking like gunfire. Her name was Commander Adrian Locke, Earth's final ambassador. Her armor bore no insignia, only the matte black of someone who didn't ask for permission. Silence snapped through the room like a taut wire as she reached the center dais and activated the master channel. All languages ceased. All eyes turned. "Effective immediately," she said, voice as calm as it was surgical. "The Terran sovereignty withdraws from the Galaxy Council. All treaties are void. Shared technologies are locked. Border access is rescinded." The Zrexan delegate rose, bloated and bristling. "You can't just. I'm not here for debate," she cut in. "This is not a vote. It's a notification." Someone laughed nervously. The council speaker, an aging feline hybrid who'd brokered peace for decades, tried for diplomacy. "Commander Locke, surely this is symbolic? A temporary negotiation stance?" Locke didn't blink. "We've wasted 200 years listening to your roundtable debates while blood soaked our allies' soil. Earth cleaned up your wars, stabilized your economies, even built your defense grid. And for what? Petty sanctions? Backroom sabotage? Political theater while your peace was bought by our dead?" Her words landed like strikes. Even the air grew still. "We're done cleaning your mess," someone shouted. "This is madness. Earth benefits from unity." Locke's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Unity requires equality. What we got was leashed potential and bureaucratic guilt-tripping. You wanted our strength, but you feared our will." The room erupted in arguments, rising voices and flared tempers in over 40 tongues. Locke stood unmoved, tapped her wrist console, and projected a map of the galaxy overhead. Hundreds of Earth-controlled systems flared red. "In 90 minutes, she said, we're going dark. All Terran systems will sever quantum links. Wormholes will collapse. Our AI liaisons in your governments will self-delete. Earth will become unavailable. You threaten galactic collapse," hissed the veiled Dominion envoy, scales rippling. "Cowardice masquerading as strength." Locke's voice was ice. "Cowardice? No. Mercy. You don't want to see what we've been building because we've stopped asking for permission to exist." A younger delegate, trembling, stepped forward. "Please, just explain why. What changed?" Locke paused. "You." And with that, she turned her back to the galaxy and walked out. The doors sealed behind her like a tomb slamming shut. Within 22 minutes, Terran embassies across Council space shut down, auto-evacuated, and sealed with adaptive titanium. Every Earth-linked AI blinked out, leaving host systems in fragmented confusion. Council ships reported wormhole gates collapsing with precision, imploding inwards before their own tracking systems could log the exit vectors. And in Terran space, something else was happening. Something no one could see. Panic came first. Then speculation. Council markets plummeted. Defense coalitions scrambled. The HFY syndicate declared martial alert. The Varnai hive began breeding warriors in massive numbers. And then came the Dominion. At a war meeting transmitted live across the Outer Rim, Grand War Master Zerkal cracked his knuckles on camera and declared, "The Terran leash has snapped. They were never more than apes with borrowed tools. Let us take what they've hoarded. Let us burn their ghosts." Applause followed. Cheers in a dozen brutal dialects. Fleets launched. World eaters prepped. The galaxy leaned into the power vacuum with fangs bared. But not everyone was convinced. A council aide, barely out of training, whispered to their superior. If Earth was weak, they would have begged. The superior didn't respond. They were still staring at the empty ambassador's podium. Back on Earth, in a place no longer mapped by any known satellite, Adrian Locke entered a subterranean command terminal glowing with data feeds from multiple dimensions. She removed her armor slowly, methodically, like someone clocking out from a long shift. A voice greeted her. Genderless, calm, almost human. Disengagement complete. Observational blackout in effect. No traceable signatures remain. She nodded. Begin Phase 2. The voice hesitated. Are you sure, Commander? The tier is still unstable. Locke exhaled. The galaxy doesn't know it yet, but we've just given it the greatest gift, distance. If they evolve, they live. If not, it's no longer our burden. Understood. Initiating rift stabilization sequence. Far below, deeper than bedrock, a chamber the size of a continent began to hum. The rift, what Terran physicists called the tear, shimmered into focus. A wound in space-time, tamed by human minds, capable of collapsing physics itself. A door to somewhere else. Not escape. Transcendence. As the hum grew louder, Locke watched one last encrypted feed, an external camera showing Earth from orbit. Serene. Silent. Entirely out of reach. She thought of the wars, the allies who had fallen while the Council debated voting protocols, the human soldiers who died on alien soil while diplomats praised restraint. Let them panic. Let them wonder. Because Earth wasn't running. Earth was rising. She closed the terminal with one final command. Lock all external access. Earth is no longer available. Selyan Vorth had always despised Earth. Not because he didn't understand it, he did. Too well. His mother was Terran-born, his father Threxian, and neither side ever let him forget it. He'd grown up watching humans fight wars they shouldn't have survived, win battles they had no right to win, and smile as if death was just a temporary inconvenience. They were reckless, arrogant, and entirely too confident in their own unpredictability. The Council called them the fire and the cold. Selyan called them dangerous. So when the Council High Chair summoned him in private, Selyan already knew what the mission was. No one else could get in. No one else had the blood for it. You want me to go into Terran space? He asked flatly. We want to know why they left. Selyan raised an eyebrow. You think they'll tell me? No, the chair admitted. But you have what they trust, roots. And a reason to come back. A day later, Selyan sat in the cockpit of a prototype stealth craft, heading toward the shattered wreckage of what used to be the Soul Gate. The wormhole around Earth had imploded precisely, like a surgeon had cut a cord and sealed the vein. No pulse, no trace. He activated the phase shift drive. The ship flickered once and vanished from all known scans. If Earth's defense grid detected him, there would be no second chance. But curiosity had always been humanity's fatal flaw. If they saw him, he gambled, they'd want to know why he was there. He was right. As he crossed into soul space, the stars shifted. Everything went quiet. Radio static vanished. Gravitational readings bent. It wasn't just that the solar system was fortified. It was altered. Mars shimmered with magnetic scaffolds. Jupiter's moons glowed with artificial lattices. Earth itself hung in the distance, serene, untouched, and very clearly alive. The first warning came as a whisper in his neural implant. Unregistered signature. Species hybrid. Query purpose? He answered not with data, but with emotion. Memory. A fragmented image of his mother on a Terran farm, teaching him to shoot a bow, before a council agent took him away. The silence stretched. Then, proceed. He was guided. Not flown. The ship turned without his input, directed toward a low-orbit corridor above Earth. He could see the defense ring now. Millions of synchronized drones, pulsing in formation, each connected to an intelligence far older than any species emitted. Cities floated beneath clouds. Oceans spiraled with coded light. He'd expected strength. He hadn't expected elegance. The ship docked. A figure waited at the airlock. Dr. Lien Sato was not what he expected. Mid-30s, bare feet, simple black jumpsuit, eyes that saw too much. She spoke before he did. "You're half a memory of Earth. That makes you interesting." He didn't move. "You knew I was coming." She shrugged. "We didn't know. We hoped. There's a difference." They walked through the corridor. No guards. No weapons. Just silence. "You want to know why we left?" she said. Selene nodded. "The Council believes you're building a weapon." She smiled. "We are. But not the kind you're thinking." They entered a chamber that wasn't a room so much as a living equation. Walls pulsed with algorithms. Gravity danced around them. At the center, suspended in stabilized entropy, was a rift, black and silver, constantly shifting, as if space itself was deciding whether to accept it. "We call it the Tier," Bien said. "It's not a portal. It's a rewrite. A place where we aren't bound by your rules. No entropy. No decay. Infinite creative force." "You left for this?" Selene asked. "To run from responsibility?" She turned to him, sharply. "We left because we were being asked to choose between potential and politics. Every time Earth innovated, the Council regulated. Every time we evolved, they debated. They feared you. They feared that we didn't need permission." He didn't respond. It was true. Terrans had never asked to lead. They just moved so fast the galaxy was forced to follow. "You think the Dominion won't attack the Council now that you're gone?" he said. "We know they will." "Then why abandon them?" "Because this time," she said quietly, "they need to learn without us. We were never allies. We were crutches." He stared into the Tier. "And if they fall?" She hesitated. "Then the ones who survive will be worth talking to." There it was. The terrible, brutal human logic. Progress through hardship. Growth through risk. He hated how much sense it made. "You're playing God," he muttered. "No," she said. "We're just tired of playing ape." He turned to leave. "The Council will see this as betrayal." "We don't care how they see it," she said. "We care what they do with it." He stopped. "If you didn't want them to know, why let me in?" "Because you're not Council. You're a mirror. You came to spy, but you're leaving with something you didn't expect." "What's that?" Lien stepped forward, her voice soft. "A choice." The tears shimmered again, expanding for a moment, revealing something inside, another Earth, maybe. Or a version of Earth untouched by war. Selene didn't know. He left without asking more. But deep in his bones, a sliver of Terran curiosity had been reignited. Not by power. Not by threat. By wonder. The Dominion's fleets didn't hesitate. In the first hour, 3 unaligned fringe systems burned. By the second, orbital colonies were gutted and towed. Prison ships moved in behind the assault cruisers, collecting labor, recording screams, broadcasting trophies. Every channel, every frequency, saturated with the message, the leash was gone. The humans had fled. And the beasts were hungry. Council pleas rang across the stars, but no one answered. Former Terran allies, stripped of Earth's protective net, sealed their borders or fell within hours. The Council itself debated, paralyzed by outdated protocols and fear of missteps. Their war rooms echoed with strategy built for lesser predators. No response from Earth. No retaliation. Just silence. Then something changed. A single packet broadcast quietly from a non-aligned comm buoy, barely noticed until it began repeating. No origin point. No encryption. No preamble. Corrective action initiated. Within minutes, Council observation posts across 5 sectors flagged anomalies. Empty space bending. Light skewing. FTL readings glitching. Something was coming, but not through gates. Not from hyperspace. It wasn't a fleet. It was a phenomenon. Across 3 war zones, Dominion ships froze mid-assault as space tore open, not exploded, but peeled. Earth's ships emerged, silent and dark. Sleek, asymmetric, like they'd been designed by no known logic. No heralds. No flags. Just one insignia etched into hulls. A broken circle. Earth's mark for classified engagement. The Dominion laughed at first, until their own weapons refused to lock. Targets not found, their AI systems whispered. Enemy unreadable. Then it began. Terran vessels moved without inertia. Without thrust. They shimmered, flickered, rewrote their own coordinates. One moment 3,000 kilometers out, the next inside Dominion formations. There was no resistance. No counterattack. The Dominion's destroyers twisted inward, crushed by artificial gravity wells that pulsed and vanished. Prison ships burst into anti-energy, collapsing in on themselves. Dominion admirals screamed for retreat. The order never reached their crews. Command decks dimmed. Control interfaces melted. Entire battle groups disappeared, not destroyed, not detonated, simply erased. As if they'd never been. On council frequencies, only one message played, calm and unshaken. We told you not to follow us. Inside the primary Dominion flagship, Grand War Master Zerkal stood, eyes wide. He barked orders, slammed claws into screens, but every system fed him one phrase. Unreal objects detected. Reality compromised. His last words, preserved in Dominion archive memory, were not curses, but disbelief. This isn't war. This is judgment. In less than 7 minutes, 42% of the Dominion Navy was gone. Not accounted for. Gone. Their home worlds received no alerts. No distress calls. Only void. Council systems erupted in panic. Emergency sessions called, military reserves activated, alliances formed in desperation. But nothing came. Earth's vessels withdrew the same way they arrived, silently, impossibly. No demands. No message. Only consequence. Until the Council received a second broadcast. It was not diplomatic. It was a recording. Adrian Locke stood before an unknown backdrop. Her eyes carried no rage. Only calculation. We were not your police. Not your shield. We were your warning. Behind her, outlines shifted, Terran troops of a kind unseen before. Armor fused with living code, weaponry that phased between concepts. They stood in silence, expressions unreadable. You assumed our exit was weakness. It was restraint. You confused absence with surrender. You poked the sleeping giant and found it awake, and tired of pretending it slept. She took a breath. Earth has moved beyond war as you understand it. We fight no longer for dominance or defense. We fight to end fights. Permanently. The image faded, replaced by a map of known space. Dominion systems blinked out, one after another, until their quadrant dimmed to black. Then, one final phrase appeared on every screen, translated into every language of every known species. We were the leash. You broke it. Learn to walk on your own. The council fell into chaos. Debates turned to accusations. Theories became fears. Did Earth plan to remove all threats? Would they erase the council next? Or worse, would they leave the galaxy to collapse, deeming it a failed experiment? Terran systems remained sealed. Quantum traffic ceased. Even ancient Terran allies were locked out. But whispers spread. Selyan Vorth returned from Earth 2 days after the strike. The council detained him immediately. What did you see? Demanded the speaker. He didn't answer. Did they threaten more? He shook his head slowly. No. That was the point. They don't need to threaten. But why now? Another counselor cried. Why this level of escalation? Selyan closed his eyes for a moment, recalling the tear, the energy, the silence of a species that had decided to evolve, not just technologically, but philosophically. They were invited to be part of something lesser. And they declined. Then what do they want? He gave the only answer that made sense. To be left alone. And for the first time in generations, the galaxy believed them. Selian Vor stood in the council chamber, no longer as an agent, but as a warning. Around him, chaos rippled like heat from a broken generator. Delegates screamed across tables, pointing fingers, demanding answers he couldn't give. He didn't flinch. The panic was spreading faster than light. It wasn't just fear of Earth, it was the terror of realizing Earth no longer cared what the galaxy thought. He waited until the speaker's voice finally cut through. Agent Vorth, in your report you said Earth built something beyond. A weapon? Selian didn't nod. A threshold. A threshold to what? To leaving this galaxy behind. Laughter burst from one quadrant. The Dominion's absence had left its predators starving. Someone scoffed. They're bluffing. They pulled a trick. Smoke and mirrors. Then chase them. Selian replied coldly. See where it gets you. Silence returned. You still don't understand what happened, he continued. They didn't erase the Dominion. They made the Dominion irrelevant. They don't want your territory. They don't need you trade. Earth isn't abandoning the galaxy. They're done babysitting it. The speaker's knuckles whitened. Then we must retaliate. Re-establish power. Show unity. No, Selian said. You want to send fleets. Earth won't respond with fleets. They'll respond with finality. The chamber fell quiet, uneasy, as if a wind had shifted across a grave. That same hour, on a lifeless moon on the edge of Terran blackout space, something stirred. An unauthorized probe, launched by a rogue faction of the Synth Coalition, crossed into Terran-sealed territory, its core wrapped in stealth code developed for deep infiltration. The probe relayed real-time footage of a structure orbiting a dark star. Not a station. A crucible. Dozens of kilometers across, it pulsed in a rhythm that wasn't mechanical. It was alive. It didn't broadcast warnings. It didn't fire. It simply sent one signal. Observed. Within seconds, the probe ceased to exist. Not destroyed, its telemetry stopped mid-transmission, as if the concept of it had been revoked. In its place, a ripple. A gentle fold in space. And a message appeared in the Synth Coalition's internal relay. Violation acknowledged. Repercussions unnecessary. But remembered. Across the galaxy, silence fell again. But silence wasn't safety. On the Council world of Era 9, a military parade was cancelled after quantum interference overloaded all systems facing Terran sectors. The interference wasn't hostile. It was rhythmic. A pulse. A heartbeat. No broadcasts. No threats. But every device that tried to measure it returned the same impossible reading. Infinity hertz. The signal ended without trace. By then, the galaxy understood Earth wasn't attacking. They were demonstrating patience. Inside a command bunker, hidden beneath an ex-council listening post, Selian watched the growing list of Terran non-responses. That was the worst part. Earth wasn't even trying to be menacing. They were just absent. Dr. Lien Sato's words echoed again. We didn't leave to dominate. We left because we could. And because we had to. He hadn't believed it until now. Earth wasn't at war. They had transcended the definition of war. The Terran strategy wasn't deterrence, it was disinterest. And when provoked, they didn't escalate. They deleted. The tipping point came 2 weeks later. A joint strike force, built from remnants of 3 smaller empires, launched a desperate attack. Their goal wasn't victory, it was proof. Proof that Earth could still be engaged. That something, somewhere, could touch them. They never made it to Earth. At the halfway mark between Council space and the last known Terran beacon, all 437 vessels simply stopped. No explosion. No signal loss. They were still there. Intact. Frozen. Drifting. Time inside those ships stopped flowing. When recovered weeks later, rescue crews reported crew members mid-blink, mid-word. No awareness. No aging. Medical scans failed. Neural signatures weren't damaged, they were missing. Like someone had hit pause on a consciousness they could never resume. A message was left behind. Not in standard code, not on screens. It was scrawled across the inner hull of the command ship in carbon trace. This is what mercy looks like. That night, the Council voted. Resolution 000 recognized Terran sovereignty as exempt. No more surveillance. No more incursions. No more contact. The galaxy officially labeled Earth as an independent ascended civilization. No delegate opposed the vote. But in private, many whispered darker thoughts. If Earth had ascended, what had they ascended into? What did it mean when an entire species no longer saw war as conflict, but as correction? Selian Vorth walked out of the council building without ceremony, without escort. He didn't need one. There was nothing left to protect them from. As he passed through the outer plaza, a child tugged on her mother's hand and asked in a hushed voice, "Will Earth come back?" Her mother didn't answer. Selian did. They never left. They're just done explaining themselves. And somewhere, beyond the veil of stars, a heartbeat continued pulsing in the dark. Waiting. Watching. Not as a threat, but as a reminder. There was no ceremony when Earth left. No monument, no beacon left behind. Just the quiet shutdown of every relay, every wormhole, every gate that once led home. The galaxy didn't notice the final silence at first. Most were too busy rebuilding. Others were still counting the losses they didn't fully understand. The Dominion was gone, but not mourned. The Council stood, but its spine had cracked. And humanity had vanished into the space between stars. Time passed. Entire empires were reborn in Earth's absence. Technologies advanced, war cooled, diplomacy sharpened out of necessity rather than idealism. What Earth had enforced with presence, the galaxy now maintained through memory. No one tried another strike. No one dared another test. Even the most aggressive species adopted a caution that had once seemed impossible. Selian Vorth had retired quietly. Not out of shame or trauma, but understanding. The Council no longer needed spies. What it needed was time. And he was happy to give it. He taught history to mixed species students now, on a neutral world that hadn't existed when he was born. He never mentioned Earth unless asked. When he did, he kept it simple. "You don't need to fear them," he'd say. "You need to remember why you feared them." Children understood more than adults ever did. One such child, bright-eyed, Threxian ears with a Terran's stubborn chin, approached him one day after class. "Master Vorth," she said, "my brother says Earth left because they hated us." He considered the question for a long moment. "Earth didn't hate us," he said at last. "They saw what we were, and what we could become, and chose not to hold us back. Then why not help more? They tried. And when we used their help as a shield instead of a lesson, they left us to grow." The girl frowned. "That's not very kind." "No," he agreed. "It's not. But it was necessary." That night, he watched the sky again. A habit he hadn't broken. Old instincts, maybe? Or hope? He wasn't sure anymore. The stars hadn't changed. But the way people looked at them had. He wasn't alone. Across the galaxy, civilizations had begun to change, not out of fear, but reflection. Not because Earth had conquered, but because Earth had left. A vacuum of dominance was always filled with war. But this time, it was filled with curiosity. They built new schools. Developed technologies not derived from Terran templates. Created alliances that had nothing to do with deterrence, and everything to do with growth. The idea was radical, to move forward without Earth. And still, even now, some wondered if Earth watched. The answer came not in a message, not in a fleet, but in something far simpler. A pulse. Across deep space sensors, it appeared without pattern or origin. One soft, slow beat of gravitational distortion, undetectable to most, but unmistakable to those who knew the rhythm. It lasted less than a second. It meant nothing. And it meant everything. Within hours, council networks surged with speculation. Old analysts were dragged from retirement. Theories blossomed. Had Earth returned? Was it a warning? A mistake? An invitation? Sullian watched from the side. He didn't say a word. Dr. Lien Sato had once told him Earth wouldn't interfere again. He had believed her. Now he wasn't sure. The pulse didn't repeat. But it didn't need to. 2 weeks later, a new observatory in the Altari expanse recorded an anomaly. A faint structure, half-formed, sitting just beyond conventional space. Not built. Not placed. Woven. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a message. It was possibility. No broadcasts followed. No Terran ships arrived. Just that silent monument, unfolding slowly, not in defiance, but in patience. The Council debated what to do. They chose nothing. And for once, nothing was wise. The monument remained unclaimed, untouched, unexplained. And from that moment, a new doctrine emerged, not enforced, not declared, but understood across species, borders, and languages. We were seen. And in that, the galaxy found its purpose again. Not in chasing Earth, or fearing it, but in proving itself worthy of whatever came next. Selyen Vorth wrote one final note in his journal before sealing it shut. Earth didn't abandon us. They freed us from dependency. And the true test wasn't surviving without them. It was becoming something they might one day choose to return to. Years later, the girl he once taught, now a diplomat, stood on a council podium and addressed the chamber twice the size of the one Earth had left behind. History doesn't remember Earth as conquerors, she said. It remembers them as the question we still strive to answer. She paused, then smiled. And maybe one day, when we've learned enough, we'll knock on their door again. Not as subjects, but as equals. Somewhere, across the stars, something watched. And waited.